Well, hello everyone. My name is Bryan Stephens and I am the President and CEO of the Hampton Roads Chamber. This is another edition of Hampton Roads Chamber Chat. We're very honored today to have with us Bob Pizzini. Bob is the CEO of iFLY. He is also a leader, not only of his company, but he's a leader in the military community and he's a leader in our business community as well. Welcome, Bob. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brian. I love visiting everybody at the Chamber. It's great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about iFLY.
Sure. So briefly, I grew up watching the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau, in black and white, and then in Technicolor. And I was always fascinated with diving. Learned about the Navy. Wanted to be a Navy diver. Navy diving led to Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal, or what's called EOD. That led to a 26-year career with Navy Special Operations, and that culminated in military freefall training. I was responsible for advanced military freefall training towards the end of my career. We would use these indoor skydiving simulators in different parts of the country, and we would always come back to Virginia Beach and say, why isn't there one here? When we were at these other locations, we would see mom, dad, and the kids and the business model. And I started losing sleep over it one night in 2009, and 6 years later we opened iFLY.
That's fantastic. And it is a successful, thriving business, I know.
We're doing great, and of course you were at the ribbon cutting over 7 years ago now, and we are having an incredible year, and it's really due to an incredible team. We really focus on leadership and taking care of each other. I got your back kind of leadership, and we're enjoying it.
Well, let's talk about leadership. How do you define leadership?
Sure. So my two-word definition is enabling others.
Great.
And then my full definition is using my experience, my education, and my training to enable others to accomplish their objectives.
Yeah, that's a good definition. That's a really good definition. You study leadership. We're lifelong learners, and if you want to be a good leader, you got to study it. What are some traits of a really good leader, Bob?
Sure. So I would say, given the evolution of my experience in leadership and talking to others and reading a lot on the subject, a leader has to be a good listener, no question about that, and you can get into the 3 levels of listening and empathetic listening. But the bottom line is leaders need to be good listeners. They also need to be decisive. They have to make a decision at some point. If they're not decisive, they're holding up the rest of their team. So be a good listener, be decisive, and number 3, have a clear vision and communicate that vision often. Keep everybody in the same cardinal direction, or my friend Ryan Crowley says, keep everybody in alignment.
Yeah, those are some great traits. Speaking of traits, there's an age-old debate as to whether leaders are born or are they trained. What do you think?
Well, I can tell you this leader was not born a leader. So, for me, it is a learned skill through trial and error, a lot of error. But a leader has to have the drive to just stay after it, stay at it day after day after a failure. A failure is really a learning experience. If you look at it that way and if you learn from it, you can grow from it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think anyone can learn to be a leader. Speaking of learning to be a leader, you started a program, which I'm a graduate of, by the way, called Elevate Your Leadership. Tell us a little bit about that, Bob.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for attending and being an alumni. So we're having rings made.
I thought you were going to ask for alumni dues.
That'll follow. That'll follow. So, 3 or 4 years ago, I was looking for some more significant leadership training for my management team. I have 6 people on the management team. And we've done the Dale Carnegie and the Franklin Covey, and that's good. Those are really good programs, and we learned from it. But we weren't getting the growth that I experienced throughout my military career. This I've got your back type of leadership, this leadership where when somebody fails, you prop them up, you help them out, you dust them off, and you put them back in motion, rather than this, gotcha kind of mentality. If a person's intent is well placed, if they're moral, if they're ethical, and their actions are legal, there's going to be failure, and that's okay. So I was looking for a leadership course that told that story, and I couldn't find anything, so I put something together for my management team. I delivered it to them. They loved it. They said, where has that been for the last 3 or 4 years? I did it again and again, repetition. Perishable skills, leadership is a perishable skill, so we have to revisit principles and other aspects of leadership on a reoccurring basis. Otherwise, we lose the edge. So as I did this with my team, I was really enjoying the process, I was enjoying the journey, and my team gave me great feedback. They said, oh, this was excellent. They said, you put us to sleep over here though, so you might want to just get rid of that. But it was a great journey for me personally, a good journey for our team at iFLY Virginia Beach. And some people outside the organization saw what I was doing and they said, take that to market. There's something different about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you did. And one of the things that's different about it that I really appreciated was you take a holistic approach to it. It's just not the traits of leadership, it's just not leadership principles, but you talk about the physical aspects, you talk about the mental aspects, you talk about everything from hydration and diet and how important that is to executing your roles and responsibilities as a leader. So we'll talk a little bit about how our listeners might be able to get involved in that here in a minute.
Great.
But before we do, we are a Chamber of Commerce and we set the conditions in the region for businesses to be a success. And we believe that leadership is part of that success formula. Why is leadership, in your opinion, so important in a business?
Businesses thrive, or the businesses that do thrive, they thrive when they have strong leadership. Strong leadership, just like the Chamber sets the conditions for businesses to thrive in our community, leaders set the conditions for everybody in their organization to thrive. And if they're not doing that, their time as the leader is going to be limited, and the tenure of the people on the team is likely to be limited as well. Leaders, one of the conditions leaders have to set in business is culture and values in the workplace.
That's right.
That's where we are today with the workforce. The baby boomers are largely on their way out or gone. Millennials make up the majority of the workforce, and they have made it clear that culture and values are one of the most important aspects of the workplace to them. So from a business leadership perspective, leaders need to create conditions for high culture and high values. And that's just one of many things, but I think it's one of the most important.
That is so important, Bob. That is so important. But I also think leadership is important in an individual or your personal life. Why do you think it is important in your personal life as well?
Sure. So for me, my personal journey, I coach youth hockey, and I've been involved in some other things. And when I share my leadership experience outside of the work organization, and this is largely through charitable efforts or donating of my time, when I share that, what I get in return is so satisfying. It's reassuring. If I can impact a young man or a young lady's life through hockey, or if their parent comes up to me and says, man, since you started coaching our son or daughter, their grades got better, their attitude got better. It's fulfilling, it's rewarding, it's reassuring, and it makes you feel good that you're helping other people.
Oh, I truly believe that success in life is all about selfless service. It's about giving, not receiving, and I think you're exactly right. Bob, you study leadership, which means you study leaders. Can you give us an example of some really outstanding leaders and what makes them so?
Sure. So this first person I'm going to mention, you've probably never heard of, but his name is Mark Sanders. He's a retired U.S. Navy commander, and he's also a very good friend of mine, and we've known each other for probably over 30 years now. But we spent a lot of time in Asia doing military exercises and operations together. Mm-hmm. And I would see him brief a group of admirals and generals on an operation, mm-hmm. and the admirals and generals would walk out of there very confident that this was going to be a success. And then he would march in E6 and below, lower enlisted people. He'd use the same set of slides, and he'd brief those lower enlisted people who are key to mission success, but he would change his delivery and his presentation. So his ability to navigate his audience is just one of the great traits that I observed. So Mark Sanders would be one great example. And then I think as I look around our community, our business community, I think most people know that my partner are Tori Breeden directly and the Breeden company more broadly. But watching Ray Breeden do what he does is humbling.
Amazing man.
It's impressive, and I have to just share a quick little story.
Okay.
I was at the Breeden company for a meeting last month, and they had a meeting before mine. I come into my meeting. Their previous meeting ran long, so they ordered lunch. So I come in for my meeting, and there wasn't a lunch ordered for me, which I was fine with. I just started my presentation, and that was that. So as Ray unbagged his lunch, he ripped his sandwich in half and walked over and gave me half of it. He ripped his chocolate chip cookie in half, came over and gave me half of it. He opened up his bag of chips, came over and dumped half of them in front of me, and he said, "Bob, join us for lunch."
Yes.
And
That's leadership.
it is. It really is. I mean, here's somebody who has tremendous influence in this community and beyond. And I just thought that. And of course, all I could say was thank you.
Absolutely, Bob, absolutely. We could talk leadership all day long, but we're going to have to close this out. But before we do, any final thoughts on leadership? And then I'm going to ask you to tell our audience how they can contact you if they want to get involved with Elevate Leadership.
Sure. So I would echo what you said earlier, that lifelong leaders, or leaders who want to be very good, are lifelong learners.
Exactly.
And so learning is very important. I just sent 2 of my management team to a 1-week course down in Texas that I have a lot of confidence in. And if people in this community are looking to elevate their leadership and engage either individually with others in the community or as a team, and enjoy the flight experience at iFLY while you're doing it, which is the best team building event on planet Earth, then I strongly encourage you to get a hold of us at, either get a hold of me directly, bob@iflyvabeach.com, or just contact iFLY Virginia Beach, and any one of the staff can lead you directly to the Elevate Your Leadership program.
Yeah. If you're interested in elevating your leadership and you're in the business community in Hampton Roads, contact Bob. He can help you do exactly that. Bob, I want to thank you for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this edition of Hampton Roads Chamber Chats.